Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone podcast. My name is Kathy. We are continuing on with our evaluation of the Affidavit of Probable Cause of December 29th, 2022 that asked for and successfully obtained a warrant for Mr. Kohberger's arrest 3 years later with the benefit of some information that was under seal until after Mr. Kohberger was sentenced back in July. Page 3 begins with the following, written by Detective Payne. Based on numerous interviews conducted by MPD officers, ISP detectives, and the feds, as well as my review of evidence, I have learned the following. On the evening of November 12, 2022, Chapin and Kernodle are seen by BF at the Sigma Chi house at the University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Perce Drive from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. BF also estimated that at approximately 1:45 a.m., Chapin and Kernodle returned to the King Road residence. BF also stated that Chapin did not live in the King Road residence, but was a guest of Kernodle. Next paragraph. Kaylee and Madison were at a local bar, the Corner Club, at 202 North Main Street in Moscow. Kaylee and Madison can be seen on video footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. on November 12th and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Kaylee and Madison can be seen on video at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck at 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow. The Grub Truck live streams video from their food truck on the streaming platform Twitch, which is available for public viewing on their website. This video was captured by law enforcement. A private party, name fully redacted here, reported that he provided a ride to Kaylee and Madison at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow, in parentheses, in front of the Grub Truck, and to parentheses, to the King Road residence. DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. And then in parentheses, law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information, end of parentheses. And that concludes page 3 of the PCA. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could now provide some discussion points based on pure opinions, based on pure commentary, based on pure speculation, based on pure rhetorical questions under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. First, this page begins with Detective Payne stating that there were numerous interviews conducted by MPD officers. Certain interviews, 4 of them in fact, were conducted relatively early on in the investigation on November 13th, 2022. 2 interviews were conducted outside of the 1122 property by the first responding MPD officer, Officer Mitch Nunez. 2 more were conducted at the Moscow Police Department, and these 4 interviews in total were of the 2 surviving roommates, BF and DM. At no time did anyone ask the surviving roommates, why did you wait until 11:56 a.m. before a call was placed to law enforcement? If you're stating these crimes occurred at approximately 4 a.m., which, ladies and gentlemen, would have given almost an 8-hour advance escape by the perpetrator or perpetrators, and I would suggest that another law enforcement agency would have asked that question. Next paragraph. There seems to be a conflict here that, according to BF, at approximately 1:45 a.m., Xana and Ethan returned to the King Road residence. And then later on, where it states that everyone was home by 2 a.m. This conflicts directly with what Judge Stephen J. Hippler had in an order filed in April of 2025 that you can read on the court docket. It's the order on text messages and 911 call, where the court states that at 2 a.m., Kaylee, Madison, and the two surviving roommates had gathered on the third floor in Kaylee's bedroom, but that Xana and Ethan were not home at that time. And that occurred at 2 a.m. and shortly thereafter, at which time the court also describes communications via text between one of the surviving roommates and the private driver, not mentioned here. Going to the issue of the private driver, we see here a conflict with how Detective Payne, in my opinion, has decided to protect the identity of certain people and not one specific person, JD. We had mentioned in our last episode of this continuing series that JD's entire first name and entire last name was disclosed not once but twice on page 2 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause. And we asked the rhetorical question, why would his name be disclosed twice at a time very early on in the investigation? This Affidavit of Probable Cause was published to the public in early January of 2023, where very little information had been released during the investigatory period by the Moscow Police Department. There was international interest in this case. People were trying to figure out what happened. To publish his name fully at that time, I question why. When we see here on page 3, the private driver, whose name is completely redacted, is, by virtue of this PCA, stated to have been apparently one of the last people to have interactions with two of the victims prior to the commission of the crimes a short time thereafter, starting at approximately 4 o'clock a.m., which is stated later in the Affidavit of Probable Cause. So why is Detective Payne protecting the private driver's name by redacting it when JD's name is fully disclosed the page before twice? And we see also that the two surviving roommates, they're only listed by initials here to protect their identities. So I'm still not understanding why there appeared to be a difference in who the author of the PCA decided identities should be protected and who shouldn't. Perhaps a more glaring example, in my opinion, is how he has protected the identity of this DoorDash driver. According to this Affidavit of Probable Cause, delivered a meal to Xana at 4 a.m. at the time of the start of the crimes. Yet, this PCA does not give any details whatsoever about the driver. Did not even say if the gender was male, female, initials, name redacted. None of that information is here. Also, what the PCA does not state, the DoorDash driver did not come forward willingly. MPD had to go look for this DoorDash driver by doing a pen trap and trace. Detective Payne himself interviewed that DoorDash driver. Provides no details regarding what happened and what was said and what was not said during that interview. And then finally, there is the absolute glaring discrepancy here, where Detective Payne is saying Madison and Kaylee were at the corner club at 1:30 a.m., but were also simultaneously at the grub truck down the road at 1:30 a.m. There's no possible way, I would argue, that they could have been at two different places at the same time. And there has also been public records requests that have yielded some video of Madison and Kaylee just before they're leaving the corner club, and then other videos showing them walking to the grub truck and then arriving at the grub truck, This will now conclude our discussion of page 3 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause. Please join us next time when we will discuss page number 4. Until then, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.